Hello, Tim Holt with Excel Real Estate. So it is the month of October, and I want to do a video covering stigmatized properties, what they are, what it means, how you market them, and how that can impact a home. So first of all, a stigmatized property is a home that is assumed to have a negative stigma, often called a haunted house. But it can also include violent crimes such as a murder or suicide that happened in or on that property. One of the most common misconceptions I hear about stigmatized properties, and it's been on shows, it's been on various formats. People have said if the house is stigmatized, if the house is haunted, your realtor has to disclose that. They don't, and they likely wouldn't. Generally speaking, if you believe in the paranormal, and I told you that this house has a stigma or is haunted, you would be less interested in buying it. So as the listing agent, certainly wasn't doing my job there. If you don't believe in the paranormal, and I tell you the house is stigmatized or haunted, then that wouldn't impact anything at all, so it was kind of a moot point. If you are the buyer's agent, the selling agent, you're representing the buyer on the house, and that is something that they have expressed a concern with, well, then that may be a little bit different, and you may wish to disclose that to them if that is something that's known about the property. It's a little easier. It's very difficult to prove that a house is haunted if it is haunted. It's very difficult to prove paranormal activity. But if there was a violent crime like a murder or a suicide, that's a little easier to find. If it has a stigma on the house, if you know the neighbors are going to come over and tell these people, oh, that house is haunted, then that may be something you would like to disclose with your buyers, unless your buyers have no interest in that. It's not something that they believe in or are concerned with. So why do we say that we don't have to disclose that? A realtor owes both parties, the seller and the buyer, honesty and integrity. And we have to disclose things that are negative, that are wrong with the property, if it is a material fact. If we know that there's something wrong, like there's rot in the home, there's a leak in the plumbing or something, those are material facts that we must disclose. And generally speaking, things that would have to be resolved unless the house is being sold as is. A violent crime happening in the property doesn't actually impact the property. Might have new carpet, but that's probably about it. It doesn't decrease the value of the home. It doesn't harm the home. It doesn't mean that the house is inferior to another home in that market. So it's not a material fact, and it's not something that we would necessarily be required to disclose. I am aware of cases where someone has purchased a home. They had what they perceived to be paranormal activity. I'm treading lightly here, but they have had activity that they perceive to be paranormal, and they have asked the seller to compensate them, to either undo the sale, put the house back on the market and they can get out, or whatever the case may be. In most states, that does not apply. In most states, because it's not a material fact, it's not something that decreases the value of the property. Once you've closed on it, you've closed on it. They don't owe you a duty to disclose that the house might have paranormal activity. So it's definitely something to consider. Your realtor on neither side of the party is actually expected to disclose that. And one of the main reasons is, and I've heard this a lot, if your realtor doesn't believe in the paranormal, how can your realtor be expected to disclose something they don't believe in? It's a very simple setup there. If you don't believe it's true, if you don't believe it's real, how could you be expected to disclose that to somebody? So that's a huge caveat in it. And you certainly don't owe anyone that responsibility. All of that being said, I have worked with sellers who wanted to list their house, who fully believed that their house had paranormal activity. They may or may not have been right. I'm not in a position to say. And they said that it was something that they wanted disclosed. They didn't want somebody buying this house, especially if they had children, without knowing what they were getting into. And in that case, because he specifically stated, since my client specifically stated he wanted that disclosed, we discussed how we would disclose that. And I told him straight to his face, I said, that's something that we can lean into. Instead of trying to hide it or pretend it isn't, an issue, we can make it, a part of the listing. So we would disclose it directly in the listing description. And, we could do things like from, midnight to 3 a.m. we could do showings, and we could do, like a live stream or something from the property and see if anything was caught. It's not something I would recommend, but when you have a client who says, I want this disclosed and I want this to be well known, well, I don't see any reason to not lean into that and make that well known about the property. It is going to limit your market. People who believe in that and are concerned with it are not going to be buying a house that fully discloses that it may have a haunting or paranormal activity. So it's something you definitely need to know, but if that's what your client wants, you represent your client's best interests. That's what you do. I wouldn't recommend it in most cases, but it depends on the client. They actually decided not to list their property, so again, kind of a moot point. They decided they're going to keep it in the family for various reasons. All that being said, I do believe in the paranormal. I believe that most people believe in the paranormal. Of course, you have your doubters, and that's fine. I've seen things in my life, and I have a sister who's heavily involved in the paranormal. So it's not something that I really can not believe in. I've seen too much and been exposed to too many things to say that I don't believe in the paranormal. But that doesn't mean that every house that says it's haunted is genuinely haunted. And it doesn't mean that because there was violent crime in that house, that house is genuinely haunted. Paranormal activity can come from a lot of different sources, and there's plenty of times that it just simply isn't true. There's a lot of times you can explain these things away. Oh, but doors slam and I hear footsteps upstairs. Well, that's because your air conditioner is old. The regulators, the flow-through vents, aren't set up correctly. And so when the AC turns on, the pressure in the room changes, it slams the door, and the walls expand, the ductwork expands, and it sounds like footsteps. It happens a lot. I've even been in houses where people said that they heard voices or heard moaning or heard something in the walls, and it's the plumbing, it's air in the plumbing. Many of these things that are believed to be paranormal are easily explained, or we can cover it and say, well, you can tell them that you hear these things, but it's more than likely this other thing. Maybe squirrels in the attic. That being said, and I want to reiterate, just because a house has a stigma does not mean your realtor has to disclose that. And quite honestly, it probably won't. I don't know where this misconception came from, but it's simply not true. You have to disclose material facts. Paranormal activity or stigma, not a material fact. But again, I'm Tim Holt with Excel Real Estate. If you have any further questions, please comment on the video and I'll try to follow up. And as always, I'm available if you would like to have anything to do with real estate. Listing, buying, selling, residential or commercial. I'm absolutely here for you. Thank you.